So I'm Dave Will. I am a CEO and co-founder of PropFuel. I'll tell you a little bit about PropFuel before we get started, but I'm here with my friends Jake and Brian. Um, Jake and Brian, you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah,
Tell
absolutely.
Good.
My name is Jake Toohey. I'm the director of our association practice at Adage. I've been here for about 12 years and I work with all of our association clients. I love working with them. Feel very lucky to get to work with clients who are made up of passionate individuals who are dedicated to a shared mission and cause. So happy to be here, and I'll turn it over to Brian.
Yeah, hi, I'm Brian Hill. I'm our VP of Strategy and Design at Adage. So I've been at Adage just about over a year now. And so at our team, we've got teams of digital strategists, UX, UI designers, and Google Analytics engineers. So a lot of my role is I get to help plan kind of long-term projects, long-term engagement with our clients. And been at Adage for a year, but been doing this 15 plus years in the digital space. So excited to be here.
One of you want to tell us a little bit about Adage and what Adage is?
Yeah, sure. We are a full service digital agency. Like Brian said, we've got UX, strategy, developers, QA, DevOps, all in-house. We are located in Chicago, or headquartered in Chicago, but we have about 150 total people. So we focus on anything web related. So if it's web applications, building just new websites, content websites, e-commerce websites, all of ours are usually integrated with multiple third-party platforms, so your AMS, your LMS. So almost all of our clients are associations and nonprofits. So that's why we're here today, and we're excited to talk about personalizing experiences.
Excellent, thank you. And I think a lot of you know PropFuel already. We tend to do a lot of these thought leadership discussions with partners and friends of family, and so that's a big part of what we're doing here today. But in case you don't know what PropFuel is a software platform designed to capture insight to help you engage your members better. We do that by asking questions primarily via email and SMS. SMS is a fairly new component of what we're offering, but it's primarily asking questions in email to capture input and take action. It's a very simple process. Ask, capture, act. It's a completely new methodology for engaging better. And so I'm going to show you some examples of that as we dig into this. So welcome to How to Create a Personalized Member Experience. It's a very broad title, but we're going to bring it down. We're going to get into some of the weeds today. I'd like to start, if I could, and I'm going to be bouncing around for a second, but I want to start with this concept of, give me one second, because we are actually using a handful of different slides. Again, this is not meant to be a traditional like share your screen and that's all we're going to do today. So here you'll see, dear Amazon, I bought a toilet seat because I needed one. Necessity, not desire. I do not collect them. I'm not a toilet seat addict. No matter how temptingly you email me, I'm not going to think, oh, go on then, just one more toilet seat. I'll treat myself. I hope you're laughing because I think this is absolutely awesome. This is exactly the problem we're trying to overcome. This is exactly the issue that we're dealing with. This is what I would consider to be very low insight on behalf of Amazon. And the key here is to create a much more personalized experience over time. What's happening is we're competing for attention, right? When you're emailing your members, you're constantly competing with other organizations and other stuff in our lives for their attention. And if you're sending them stuff on a regular basis that's completely irrelevant to them, they're learning that you're not providing value. So the idea of capturing, increasing your awareness, increasing your insight, and driving personalization is a really, really important component. With that, I wanted to introduce the topic and the concept. We're going to show you a number of ways to increase your personalization, whether it's on your website or whether it's over email, and how to capture that information better so that you can use it either immediately or in the future. And so with that, Brian or Jake, do you want to talk about the North Star? How to
Well, yeah,
get to that point of the high insight?
Yes, I mean, isn't it funny that Amazon, who actually does personalize the experience pretty well, they definitely get that wrong, and it annoys a lot of people. And I have an example I'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, we like to approach things, and we do. And I'll let Brian talk a little bit about this, but he's got this concept of North Star, and it's really kind of backing up before you can jump into personalization. We hear all the time that we want to personalize the experiences for our members more, but starting from a place with low insight that you were talking about, Dave, we have processes in place to find a little bit more about our members through data and also through kind of high touch interviews and workshops. I'll let Brian talk about that a little bit more in the concept.
Yeah, so we talk about the idea of creating a North Star, and as you get into personalization around digital, it's really this idea of having a plan. And so what we like with this idea for the North Star is really to kind of create a vision and decide where it is that we want to go. How do we want to arrive at this place that, if you remember being outside looking up, you find the North Star and it's seemingly far off. But the idea with this is that it creates a vision and it creates a path for where you want to go. And from there, the goal is that you start moving in a direction that gets you where you want to go. But the idea with the North Star is that once you've set that vision, you don't put it up on a shelf and then forget completely about it. It's something that you're constantly looking down at your feet, you're looking where you're going, and you're looking back up. Am I still aligned? Am I still on track? And so this idea with the North Star gets us moving in a direction. And then when we start moving in that direction, then we can start to really engage through personalization and the right strategy. But before you get into personalization, it's coming up with this strategy of how we're going to do it. What are we even trying to do?
Hey, Brian, let me interrupt you for a second. Describe to me what a North Star may look like. Describe to me, like, when you've seen organizations define a North Star, what's involved in that?
So a lot of times the North Star, it will vary from client to client. It will vary from team size, what the initiative. We've had North Stars as big as we want to go completely digital. We want to revamp our entire digital experience across multiple domains, from all the way down to we want to make personalization. We've had that with clients. We want to get into personalization. How do we do that? And so it's really kind of identifying a goal of where we want to go. And then we start to create a path of how we want to get there. And so it can vary. It doesn't have to be large organizational goals. It really can be something that, hey, for the next 6, 9, 12 months, we're going to set our vision and we're going to try to attain.
So it could be any objective for that matter. It doesn't necessarily have to be the North Star. There's actually a lot of stars out there, many of which might be North Stars. It's just it's the end goal for a given project is what we call the North Star. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
and it's this idea that it constantly requires for you to revisit it and make sure you're on the right track, rather than just look once and go. We want to make sure every quarter, every month, are we still setting out to do what we intended to do with this North Star?
And is this part of your process at Adage to work your clients as you're building out websites for them? Is this part of the process to define the North Star? What is the purpose of the site? Is that where this comes from?
Yeah, that is the purpose of the site, and a lot of times it's kind of supporting this vision. We'll start with guiding principles, and we'll make sure every quarter. We want to be fast, we want to be engaging, and we want to be timely. So, every quarter as we revisit progress on a project or on a particular initiative, are we fast, engaging, and timely? Those are the things that we constantly hold up and constantly reference.
So let me ask the audience a question, then back to you, Brian. I didn't mean to interrupt. It's going to be very difficult for me not to. So for the audience here, I'd love to hear. You don't have to respond, but it's always more fun if you do. I'd be very curious when you initiate a strategic initiative, when you initiate something, think about your strategic plan and the things you're working on, either in this past fiscal year or this upcoming fiscal year. Do you start with a North Star? Do you guys get in a meeting and visualize, document what the outcomes look like if you're successful? So go ahead and type that in. And that's more than a yes or no question. Tell me what you do and how you do it. And anyway, with that, Brian, go on.
Right. So what the intention is kind of like I was saying, is just it's constant revisiting. It's this idea, like I said, you remember being outside and, you want to walk in a particular direction. And part of what Adage does is we can help set, hey, we know that there's a lake coming up because we've been down this road before. We're experts in technology. We can avoid you and help you get around that without really losing course, rather than all of a sudden you're waist deep in water because you're too busy looking at up rather than looking at your surroundings. So it's kind of this idea of just bouncing back and forth between 30,000 foot view and the 300 foot view of where you want to go tactically and strategically.
And I would add to that, like we have some clients, there's one in particular I'm thinking of where we're talking about like a multi-year digital transformation initiative, and their North Star really, it just boiled down to like 3 simple words. It was connect, simplify, personalize. So if any of the initiative, any decisions that were being made, if they weren't doing so to connect, simplify the experience or personalize the experience, then they don't do them. And so that's the kind of thing that we hold on to, and throughout multiple years of doing this with this particular client, that's still in place, and they still follow that North Star to this day.
So there's some really interesting comments coming in all the way from, no, it sounds interesting. Sorry, Tim, not that interesting a comment, but I agree. Lisa says, usually the North Star instigates at least one meeting. Our team meetings generate North Star ideas. Those are dangerous, right? That's also known as distractions. But I love the idea of having these meetings where people are thinking creatively. The trick I find on our team here at PropFuel is reining in those ideas so that we know what's really important to us. And then I think it was Paul says the one page organizational scorecard, and all the subcategories and projects and so on. We use a process like that as well, a strategic planning process, we have a scorecard on it, but also that's what keeps us focused. Right. And so this brainstorming that Lisa's talking about, these ideas, where those go? Long-term issues. We put all those ideas into these long-term issues that then at the end of each quarter we revisit and say, okay, well, is that something we want to initiate this quarter, or are we going to put that off to the next fiscal year? So that's how we organize. I mean, this webinar has instantly gone from personalization into strategic planning very quickly, but I think I love that topic. I think it's a fascinating topic. Let's bring it back though to personalization. So how does North Star, Brian, align to our topic today of high personalization?
So the idea with North Star aligning to high personalization is that you need to create a plan. And so talking about creating a plan is one thing, but really the idea of what are the statistics, what's the data we're going to use, what is at our fingertips to start to execute on this? Because we can have the greatest plan in the world, we just may not be equipped as a team to handle it. We may be a 3-person team, and we're just not big enough to create personalized content for every single visitor. So part of this North Star is understanding the constraints that you're working within, understanding your budget, understanding your timeline, understanding your resources, and then fitting a plan that fits that and utilizing data that's in front of us. And so at Adage, we use a couple pieces of data through our strategy workshops when we want to talk through what does it look like to make a plan. We start with what do we know and what do we have in front of us. So from a digital perspective, we look at something passive like Google Analytics, where we're just taking in data. We're not proactively going out. We're just reading these reports, and we're noticing trends, and we're noticing things that where are certain people falling off? What content are they not engaging with? And really kind of passively, we're starting to absorb this information. And what we like to do is that only becomes a little part of this personalization plan. What is past usage telling us that we can then start to inform the future?
And so you've got this passive analytics, right? Mm-hmm. That you're capturing, observing transactional and behavioral data, coming from Google, coming from the AMS, coming from maybe surveys or whatever. But you have there's very passive background data that you're capturing, and then you have you told me about workshops and interviews and user testing that you're doing, which is a more active approach. Can you talk a little bit about how you run those? How do you capture this, what you call active data?
Sure. So when we call things like active data or active insights, what we're doing is during our strategy sessions or our discovery sessions, as we're talking to actual users of the site, we're talking to key stakeholders. How is it that you're engaging with the site? You know, what are your issues? What are you running into? What do you wish would happen? And we're really starting to gather and help build data that will back up our North Star plan or our strategic plan. You know, we're finding X amount of users are running into this, so we can correlate that a majority of the population is struggling with, you know, the add to cart button, which is below the fold on a page. And so we like to actively go out and kind of source that information and source that feedback. So for us, that it's a good mix of the passive, of the things that we can just digest, but then the mix of the active of, we're going to get in front of people and we're going to ask questions. We're going to go through user testing with our new designs, and we're going to say, does this resonate? Because we've made these decisions in a vacuum, and we haven't put them in front of end users. And we want to hear their feedback because we want to make sure we're getting it right. And that's part of the idea of, you know, are we looking up and then are we looking back down? We're getting that active feedback by engaging with customers or users.
I love that. And Jake, anything to add? Because I've got a lot to say, and I just want to make sure I'm not cutting you off.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, I think it's something that PropFuel does great. I thought about it when you mentioned surveys. I think we see a lot of clients that have historically relied on surveys or, you know, just anecdotal data to make decisions. And I love what you guys do, and you just like constantly gaining more information, just little chunks at a time, a little bit, and then building out kind of profiles. So you're not pulling all the data that you can get in through unreliable sources. You're just kind of taking it in. So I'll let you go from there, Dave.
Well, it's always nice when it's good, I guess, to speak highly of yourself, but it's always better when other people speak highly of you. So thanks, Jake. So that's where I was going with this. So you've got this passive behavioral and transactional data, then you have this more intentional approach of capturing data through workshops and interviews and user testing and so on. But and it's super, super valuable to be able to really go deep. We do that. You know, some of you watching this may have been in a conversation with me recently where I get in a Zoom call and we talk for 15, 20, 30 minutes. And the conversation I've been having with many of our clients recently is around reporting functionality, because that's something we're working on. And before we go to work and start developing better reporting functionality, we want to know, well, what is it we're building here? We need our North Star, Brian. So that's what we're doing. And we do that through interviews. However, when you have thousands of members and you want to hear from all of them, or as many as you can, you want to get input, you want to have an exchange with as many as you can, very, very difficult to do in the one-off sort of interview sort of process like that. And that's where a platform like PropFuel comes in. We call that zero-party data. That's not a term that we created. That's an industry term, but zero-party data as related to like second and third-party data. Zero-party data is when somebody gives you information directly. You ask them a question and they tell you. A conversation is the most obvious form of zero-party data. You see somebody, you ask them a question. Oh, Brian, where are you from? This is where I'm. So that's zero-party data, right? And so that's really the land that we live in. There's so I'm going to move this now to this idea of understanding member needs. And my friend here, I'm going to share my screen again. Actually, I have a handful of slides I want to show at this point. But my friend here, Reggie Henry, who I think many of you know, correct? Give me a second. I want to see if I can pull my chat back up so I can see if any comments come in while I'm talking. But yeah, by the way, I'm very curious. I asked the question in chat, tell me how big your staff is. Just throw a number in there. Very curious to see what size organizations we're talking to here. Wow, 40, it's a pretty big team. Lisa's got you beat with 50.
Oh, Maureen.
Maureen, wow, 150 employees. Yeah. All right. So this Reggie Henry and I were talking one day. He's become a good friend over the many years that we've been working together. And as I was talking about building out profiles by capturing data, asking questions, capturing data, writing it back to the AMS, and creating more robust profiles, Reggie was glowing, and he says, yes, that's what I mean by a member needs database. And he talks about taking this not just profile data, but really understanding who your members are, not at the aggregate level like a survey does, but at the individual level, so that you know exactly who each individual member is in your database. That's the beginning of personalization, right? If you can build out that member needs database, that's the very first step of getting you closer to personalization. And so with that, that's this process I oftentimes call progressive profiling. And I actually haven't said that in a while, but Jake reminded me of that phrase, this progressive profiling tool that allows you to collect data over time. So I want to show you a couple examples of how we're doing that. And I'm trying to see if I'm missing anything out. And then Jake or Brian, I'd love for you to show us something in Adage just so we can get a visual understanding of some of the work you do.
Yep.
But this is, there's Reggie, my friend. So let's look at this one. I am so happy to show this to you guys. This is the newest, one of our newest clients that has come on, just rolled out this question because one of their main reasons for signing on with PropFuel was to capture more profile data. And so this blew me away. This happened, what day is it? Thursday? This happened earlier this week. I think this went out on Monday. Isn't that crazy? Look at this. On Monday, this goes out.
Wow.
Notice the methodology, though. If you look here, you'll see it's very, very, the emphasis is this call to action, right? So that's part of this process of ask, capture, act, which we also, generally speaking, what we're doing here is called conversational engagement. And that's this idea of starting a conversation. How do you start a conversation? You ask a question. Now, based on how they answer, you're going to respond with something and vice versa. It's a two-way exchange. Well, this is a very specific use case of conversational engagement. And the use case we're talking about primarily today is profile building. So we're not going to beat around the bush. We're not going to give them a lot of information. We're not going to give them other things to click on. We're just saying, look, we want to know something. This is what we have for you on file. This is an example I sent myself, and they don't have me in their database. So A, they don't have my name, nor do they have my title. So that's why it says colleague, and then no title. This is this still your job title? The answer would be no. So I click on no, and it brings me to this next page, super, super frictionless. And then they type in, I might type in co-founder and CEO, and then I hit submit, and boom, it updates the database. I don't know offhand what database they're using. I can't remember, but whether it's IMIS or Nimble or whatever, throws the data back into the contact record. So this is, and look at this, it's insane. Like, this blows my mind. The methodology is fantastic. Oh, Nimble, thank you, Amy. This is such an awesome success story. So 8,000, no, not 8,600. Let's see. So yes, actually they verified 8,653 as of today. This was, I took the screenshot this morning, and they updated 2,951 records. That is insane in the membrane. All right. So that's one example of Amy says, that's me. Thanks for sharing, Dave. You're welcome. We did ask permission, by the way, Amy. So thank you. So Amy, I'm so glad you're on the webinar. I actually didn't even know you were going to be here. That's so funny. Amy, anything you want to add in the chat? I wish I knew how to bring you into the call. I could get you to talk about this for something. But if there's anything you want to add into the chat, please do. I'll make sure everybody hears it. Happy to share. Platform couldn't be, thank you. Platform couldn't be easier. We're pleased with the results. Good. All right. Let me show you a couple other examples. ASM, American Society for Microbiology. So they want to know a little bit more. And this one's a little more interest oriented, right? And so that's the idea of capturing areas of interest. Now, they have tons of members, and so they need to know, like, we can't just send everybody everything over email. And Bree says, how does an updated member title help associations personalize the member experience? Well, with the right title, you can start to segment your audience better. In this specific case, you're building this member needs database where now you can take this information, and now you're minimizing the number of emails that you have to send to everybody, and you're sending more relevant emails to the right people. And in this case, not only are they updating the database, but if somebody clicks on a certain topic of interest, boom, on the next page, we show them some stuff that's really, really relevant. So they're getting immediate value from this exchange, but also ASM is capturing this information for future engagement through their, I think they use, I want to say they use Pardot. I could be mistaken there. All right, a couple more examples here. ASAE, again, I mentioned Reggie a few minutes ago from ASAE, but ASAE uses this in their new member onboarding process. They ask the question, what's most important to you as you manage your career this year? Again, this is understanding your members at the individual level. And if we say getting or preparing for my CAE, which a fair number of people say, 13% of the people that answer this question say, I'm getting my CAE and that's important to me. So you know what we do? We add them to a campaign in PropFuel that waits for 3 months. And then in 3 months, we reach out to them again and say, hey, how's it going with this CAE? What stage of the process are you in? And what do you need help with? How can we help? And based on how they answer these questions, we'll send them to specific places. All right. Whoops, I went the wrong way. There we go. OSCPA, are you planning? So this works exceptionally well in the renewal process too. Drawing people in with such a simple message like this, as opposed to one of these really long emails that gives you 15 reasons why they need to renew, and then at the bottom it says renew now. So this again is understanding your member, right? It's member needs. Tell me about where you're at right now in this process, in the process in our relationship between OSCPA and our member. Where are you? This tells you where you are right now in your relationship with them. It's context, right? So, and sadly, some people let it go, right? And so again, for people that have left, I want to know, how likely is it that we're going to get you back? Like, is there something we can do? Give us a little more context. Let me see. There is, okay, and I think this is the last one I want to show you, and then I'll turn it over to you, Jake and Brian. Why aren't you renewing? Again, the idea of a conversation, the idea of a two-way exchange, what we call conversational engagement, is to understand what's going on with that person at that moment so that we can serve them better right now. That's personalization. And that's what we're talking about today, is how do you create this highly personalized experience? Now, what I'm talking about here is creating an exchange right now via email. Now, Brian and Jake have a slightly different message to share with you. Have a slightly different message to share, and that's how do you get people when they're on the website to have a more personalized experience. So I'll leave it to you guys, Jake and Brian.
All right.
And by the way, if there's any questions, obviously I'm going to jump in and answer those questions. So please do ask.
All right, Brian, as I'm pulling this up, we have this concept of crawl, walk, run when it comes to personalization. I'll let him talk about that real quickly and set it up, and I'll show some examples of what we mean.
So the idea with crawl, walk, run, as I'm sure you can all guess by hearing the verbs, is to kind of start slowly and understand that personalization is a process, especially on the web side of things. Personalized content means that your marketers and your content creators have to create multiple pieces of content that will live in the same area. So it's this idea of understanding how do we start moving in the arena of personalization? What are the things that we can do that just begin to personalize the experience? And so these are things that really can be as basic as remembering John as he comes back and he is logged in. It's just
or can I interrupt again?
Yeah.
I'll do many more times, I'm sure. How about remembering somebody's birthday? Like
there you go.
We had one client, Air Force, Air and Space Force Association, and they sent out I love this story. I wish I remembered to put this in here, but they sent out a birthday email saying, "Hey, happy birthday!" I can't remember the guy's name. Let's see, John. Happy birthday, John, from the Air and Space Force Association. Wishing you a great day. Is there anything we can do to help you? And John ended up calling, because she put her signature in there like Amy did. She put her signature in there. John called our contact Carrie over there and left a long voicemail. And you know what it said? He said, "I want to thank you for reaching out to me on my birthday. That was really nice. I'm 96 years old today, and I'm just going out ballroom dancing. So I just wanted to tell you how important Air and Space Force Association is, and thank you for your message. Talk about personalization. Pretty damn cool. Anyway,
I
I'm
think
sorry
that's
to
one of those
interrupt, but
things. No. I think it's, you talked about progressive profiling, and that's a question that we ask is like, how much information is on your membership application, and building out what you ask. I mean, we've seen membership applications that are multiple pages with tons of information that isn't relevant to what you're, why you're collecting that data, but you can build that out over time. Progressive profiling, gaining information. Bree, you asked about, their career stage. It's probably going to change. There's a lot of different things you can do. Like, how much data do you get when somebody's coming to your event, and what do you do with it? So we can learn a lot, and we can keep updating the profiles, and that's what you really need to do to personalize the experience on the web. Brian, is there anything else you wanted to touch on before I jump into some of these examples?
No, I just to kind of piggyback off of what you said, Jake. We do quite a bit of work through e-commerce, and one of the tenets that I've always had, being on both client side and service side, is like, if someone is going to give you their money, let's make it as easy as possible for that to happen. You want to order something. What 3-4 pieces of information do we need so I can take your order and I can take your money? You're going to sign up for something. What is the bare minimum I need to be able to have that credit card get accepted and your membership begin? So that is something we hold through kind of as we look through e-commerce or just general user journeys throughout the site, is let's make sure that we're having the least amount of friction so that someone can give us their money. And is put pretty simply, like that's just a tenet we have, and so it's great to see it, kind of span across multiple areas.
Yeah, I mean, you think about like looking at places like Netflix or Amazon or Disney Plus as a competitor, and how easy it is to sign up for one of those services. And they
oh
don't ask for a
man,
ton of
oh my,
information.
don't even get me started on the associations I belong to. I'm not going to tell you who they are because I'm about to slam them. The whole registration process for events or the join process. Can you imagine if Netflix made it that hard to join or that hard to watch a show? It's crazy. Now, having said that, also, let's remember Netflix is a
Of course.
multi-billion-dollar organization with an amazing amount of money behind it. So they better be good.
But
But
the
it's
whole thing is
because,
making it easy, right? I mean,
yeah,
we can
yeah.
still, without a huge budget, you can still make it as easy as possible throughout the journey for that member. And you don't have to take all the information in at once. You can build out that profile over time to get to a place where you're doing more than what you're seeing on the screen right now. And there's these examples of the different types of personalization. So there's manual, where you use things like visitor groups, and you can send content to people that fall into different buckets, whether it's number of sites visited, pages viewed, time of day, whatever it might be. And then automated personalization is really behavioral targeting with, based on things like event status or your board or committee role status. We can know that, and then personalize content, products, learning opportunities to you. But the basis of the start is this crawl phase. This crawl phase is just simple as knowing who they are and saying, welcome back. And another example that I've got here is the American Academy of Pediatrics. On their site, when you're going down this, at some point, if we know that one of their members is not taking advantage of some of the member benefits that are available to them, we pop this thing up. We use AFQs for this. And we say we've got some benefits that you haven't used. So at least that much we know when they visited the site, where they've gone and what they may or may not be taking advantage of. Another example of crawl is the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry. They had an annual conference in May. They're promoting the registration to their members when they're, whether they're logged in or not. But when you finally do, and Dave, this is kind of your example with Amazon selling toilets to you. When they've already registered for your event, we don't want to continue to offer that. When they come back to the site, you want to see things like planning your trip, planning the agenda, book your hotel, because we know more information about them, at least the status of their registration for an upcoming event. Were you going to say something, Dave?
I don't know, probably. Yeah, actually, I have something now. I often, when I'm describing to new clients or existing clients, like, so what do we ask? And I'm thinking in terms of PropFuel email questions, like, so new member onboarding, what do you ask? And my answer is always the same, which is, well, what would you ask if they were standing right in front of you? And that got me thinking, can you imagine standing in front of you that talking to somebody that just registered for your conference, and every time you see him, like, hey, you gonna come to the conference? Like, yes, I remember. I just told you yesterday when you asked. The other thing that always cracks me up is when we send out, this is just technology. We've been trained that this is okay, but you send out email notification saying, hey, we got this hey, Jake, we've got this web, and by the way, I sent it to your email address and I know who you're with. Hey, Jake, we got this webinar. Are you coming? And you're like, yeah. And then we bring you to a page that says, great, Jake, what's your name? And what's your email? Like, dude, we just sent you this email. We have that information. All this is poor execution of technology. And that's why when you sign up for one of our webinars, you'll see, like, we don't ask you that stuff. We know who you are. And that's an example of how you personalize and create this really smooth, simple experience.
And that is a great example. I wanted to move into just a couple examples when we talk walk and run. This is a site, this is the non-logged in version of a site we're doing right now for the American Retirement Association. But this is what it's going to look like when you log in. So this is just a dashboard driven by CMS, pulling in information from different systems. In this example, it's AMS, LMS, and then CMS data. And what you see here when we kind of link off to these different pieces, the AMS data, we got account and profile information, membership benefits, status, so a notification for expiration. Then there's product information, which can also be coming from an e-commerce site. The LMS, we can recommend exams and lead you in your credentialing or career path. And there's also a status on your progress towards achieving advanced certifications. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the career progression with personalization in a second, but and then the CMS piece is driving recommendations for things like webcasts, personalized content, just favorites, like favorite items, and notifications with other things you might be interested in. So all this is driving one centralized experience for members, and it's personalized and provides value.
That is awesome. And that's walk. I'm kind of curious
That's
what
walk.
run looks like.
Yep.
Brian,
and by the
talk
way,
about that.
really
Yeah,
nice
so
execution. This
how
looks really good too, by the way, the way you
Thank you.
Yeah,
how
really
we
nice.
get there, the simple way I like to look at it is the idea is crawl is to just use information that shows that we know who you are. So Jake goes back to that you've signed up for a conference. We know you're signed up. We're not going to ask you to sign up. We're not prompting you to do something, but we're showing that we know who you are. We're showing that we understand who you are. We understand what your experience and your journey has been so far. Now the idea with the walk phase is to get you to do something. So not only do we have data, but you're looking, through an LMS, and we know that, hey, you're a couple CEs short. Here's an opportunity to take a course, or here's a way to get you back on track. So the idea with crawl is to start with that content and begin engaging and show these members that you have an understanding of who they are and what they've done. And with walk, now we want to take data that we have and begin to prompt you to do something, begin to show you that there are other things out there. And as we get to the run phase, now this is starting to not only get you to do something, but start to make a plan for you. So Jake, you can kind of talk through this, but the idea with run is now we start to look 2 or 3 steps ahead. Rather than get you to sign up for a conference, we're going to get you to take these 4 classes, because if you take these, you'll get a job promotion and here's your new salary.
Right. So I mentioned career advancement, and this is just recommending certification based on kind of the role progression. So you're in a role and you don't know how to progress into the next role, but the system does. And so it knows what you can progress to. So now it makes proactive recommendations to make your life better. So you're going to get, by moving to a role and a promotion, you can earn up to, however much more with in the next role. And what we can do is, if you've got a career center, this is kind of the thing for you, but we can offer once we know this and we're pushing you through this journey, earn your advanced certification so that we can promote products, we can promote educational opportunities so that you can get that certification, and which you're going to probably buy through the association, and earn that so that you can move up in your career. And I do have a couple just more example. This is kind of about personalized product recommendations. So say somebody's reading an article, it's on a certain topic and it relates to different products. So what it does is kicks that off, and we understand who the user is and the products that they may be interested in. And sometimes people don't like to learn, or people like to learn different ways. So some are more prone to learning through video, some it's more through reading. But if we know that this particular user has a preference for video content, then we can then promote webinars, video series, self-paced courses, and also products and other services.
This is
Last one.
really, really cool, by the way. And it gets me super excited. I've been getting really into AI recently and the use cases and what we can do with it in our platform. But seeing what you're doing here, I would imagine there's just a total green fields in front of us for the use of AI to hyper personalize things.
Absolutely. This is just another example of when people are taking assessments, and then we can push recommendations in and push out to education opportunities, like I mentioned, publications, e-commerce, whatever it might be, but then creating an individual learning path. And this is going to be my last quick example, but if we know somebody got a question wrong on a test, that's going to go, we've identified this knowledge gap, and we can add it to their profile so that we know that this is something that they're going to need help with. And then we can recommend courses, webinars, journals, articles, books, conferences, exam prep. That's really the run phase. So Dave, when we're looking at that dashboard earlier, and then you see this, what's your reaction?
Well, this immediately makes me think of something my wife showed. So, you're married to me. You talk about this stuff on long rides. Like, isn't that, I don't know if that's fortunate or unfortunate, but she gets into it. So we're driving back from New Hampshire, I don't know, a month or 6 weeks ago or so. And before the last webinar I did, and we started talking about this concept of being super personalized and learning, capturing insight and learning about people so that we can serve them better. And she's like, you know what, not to stereotype my wife, but she was buying makeup online. And she said, there's this really cool, and I showed it in my last webinar, I can't remember the name of it, but she said, there's this place where I just went, she sent me the link to it. I actually went through the process where they give you an assessment. They ask you questions. It's like a little chat bot, and they ask you some questions, and it's really quite cool based on what I answer might take me down a slightly different path. And then at the end, it's like, you know what, based on what you told us, out of our hundreds of products, these are the 3 that are probably most meaningful to you. And she's like, I read it. Like, those are the products I look at, and she more often than not ends up buying something. So really, so what you guys are proposing for associations is what's happening in the really progressive businesses today. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's the expectations you're kind of up against, right?
So I've been keeping an eye. I'm not seeing any additional questions come in, but I do have one. Before, let's see. What I'd like to do is I want to share our contact information again. It's going to take me a second to pop this up because I have so many different windows. But I also have a quick poll that I want to ask you guys. Essentially, I know we have a lot of PropFuel has a number of clients on the webinar today, which I'm thrilled about. If you are a client of ours and you aren't already signed up at 3 Eastern today, so that's in about an hour and 15 minutes from now, we have a client roundtable, client only, where clients are invited to join us in a discussion about SMS and how you're using SMS, and we'll show you, or some of our clients will come in and show you how they're using SMS. Additionally, if you are not a client and you're interested in there's our contact information for you. If you are not a client of Adage or PropFuels and you're interested in learning more, I just put a poll up on the screen. Please tell me if you can't see that, but I just put a poll up on the screen. Go ahead and answer if you'd like more information on PropFuel, more information on Adage. And of course, if the answer to either one of those is yes, then make sure you give us your name and email. We haven't done this before, so we're trying this out, and we'll see if this is of value. I lost my chat. Oh, there we go. ACA, Ask, Capture, Act. I love that. Ask, Capture, Act. Good. I had a question for you guys. I know this isn't from the audience, but I'm still kind of curious. You showed the Career Center. Do you think, and I'm curious if there's any trade associations out there, but are trade or associations that have organizational members, do they provide career guidance or career site functionality to their members? Because I would think that would be a little bit threatening to the organizational members. Like, why would an organization want to give their employees the option to look at other jobs out there?
Well, I think that really depends on what the Career Center's for. I mean, the Career Center may be, yeah, I guess if there are competitors that are all part of your association, then that could be a problem for some. But sorry, I'm stumbling on this a little bit, Brian. I don't know if
No,
you have any
it's
thoughts.
more a discussion. I don't expect
Yeah.
you to have the answer, really. But I'm curious if anyone out there is a trade association and could answer that for us. But Brian, if you have any insight, jump in, please.
Not that I've run across, but my trade association and career center experience isn't as high as someone like Jake's.
So Reggie Henry brought up in a tech panel on Facebook last night. He said, "When is automation not a solution?" In other words, how much automation in tech is too much? When does it not work, or when does it decrease personalization? Yeah, I have some insight on that personally, but go ahead. What do you think?
The first thing I would say is, like, if you've got bad data, then you're not going to effectively personalize relevant content or products, anything like that.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yep. So my thought is, I don't worry too much about tech or not tech. Tech to me is just a way of scaling things and making things happen faster and more efficiently, and in many cases better. But in some cases, tech does not make it better. And so to me, the most important thing is not the tech, it's the process. So, and I'm a process guy first and a tech guy second. I think the most important thing is to make sure that your process, that's another way of describing a member journey or experience, that's got to be the first thing we focus on. All right.
And I would say when it gets in the way of the customer experience is when it's not right. So go back to your toilet seat idea. Well, we have the tech that can email you because we know you recently purchased something, you may also like. Well, that's great if you have it, but if it's getting in the way of a positive member or customer experience, then it's not the right solution. It's a little like Jake says around data, but I think it's more around how we're engaging with the end user and what is their experience. When we look at it from their perspective, then I don't know that it's not enough or it's too much, but when it interrupts that experience, that's when it's a problem and it needs to be evaluated.
All right, with that, anything else to add, Jake, Brian, before we wrap this?
No, just thank you for having us.
No,
We really appreciate
yeah.
everybody. A nice, engaging conversation. So we're thrilled to have been a part of this. So thanks for having us, Dave.
Excellent. Really glad to have you. Thank you for participating. Bye, guys. Thank you for joining us. And if you're a client and would like to join us at 3, go ahead and send me an email and I'll get you signed up for that. Bye, everyone.